Hello and welcome to episode 283 of the Smash Accept podcast. I'm your host, Michael Royer. You can find me on Twitter at DynastyDadFF. A lot of you guys got Goffed, or you got, Josh Allen here in the playoffs, or Mike Evans. So many guys went off. A lot of you have been saying, Dad, I'm out of the playoffs, man. It's been a great year in redraft. You're like, join Dynasty. So the show keeps going, right? Other you guys are like, oh, it was a disappointing year, but I learned a lot of things. And I think we can move forward. That's the most important part, is if you missed your week 15, and this is where Snoog and I keep saying, you want to be top three, bottom three. You get that playoff spot, because once you get in the playoffs, anything can happen. I had the 3 seed in 2 teams. I was the number 2 scorer in the entire league in both of them and lost both of them. So shout out to those guys that beat me there. But you got to be in position to win. The best way to be in position to win, Snoog, is to dominate your rookie draft. And my brother, we're talking 2025 rookies at that wide receiver position today.
This is the best time of the year, Dad. I mean, not only did the Texans just clinch a playoff berth, but watch Jahmyr Gibbs drop 28. Watch Alvin Kamara with the catch of the week with that one-handed sideline grab. So big week for me. It wasn't looking good for me going into the week after that Thursday night disaster class by the Rams and 49ers. I thought I was going to have a lot of bad beats and some really good teams. But we bounced back. Looking like we're going to probably end up losing like 3, maybe 2 games, but we had some good comebacks. So we're going to have like 20 teams in the playoffs next week in round 2. So I'm excited. I dropped 275 in a team with only 2 flex, 6-point passing on a bye week this week. So you hate to see that, but it's fun. It's going to be exciting. And I'm excited to jump into this class, especially talking about the wideouts, because to a lot of people, myself included, it's a mediocre class, but there's some guys in that top 8 that I like that we can talk about.
Absolutely. And, wide receivers won the day yesterday. We were talking about picking up Adams and Evans everywhere. People didn't want to pay a first. We're going to do an entire show on, how to keep moving week 16 and 17. But without further ado, we're going to talk about the wide receivers. Before I do that, shout out, we got the Patreon. It has been absolutely incredible this year. We have gotten up to 480 people into the Patreon. It has been just something that's super exciting to watch people win. Like that's where we're at now, right? Is like everyone they're up against it in the playoffs. They're saying things, and like I'm going to put the link up here real quick, but shout out to Tub. He said, biggest shout out ever to Dad and Snoog. I joined in the offseason with 10 different leagues, 9 semifinals, 1 year punt in the other. Job's not finished yet, but you guys are the GOATs. That kind of stuff is what I love to do. I mean, when we started this, it was a matter of we want to help people, right? We're not just up here to talk. We love talking shop all the time, but we're here to help people. And in the Patreon, we are making moves where, Snoog made a transition with someone to make a trade for Connor and Evans and Adams all the way in. There were guys that were coming to me and they're like, hey, should I start this guy or that guy? And a lot of us, we steered people in the right direction. One guy came up and he's like, I really like Sincere McCormick. I'm thinking about starting over Brian Thomas Jr. this week because he's against Sauce Gardner. I'm like, don't do it. Just don't do it. So last year we nailed it with the wide receivers. We were telling you to take Ladd. We were telling you to take Brian Thomas. We were telling you to take Neighbors. We were telling you to do those things. This year's class, if you like Mike Evans, you're going to love Tet McMillan. I mean, Tet McMillan is just phenomenal. You look at him, and he is someone 6'5", 212 pounds. He possesses a rare combination of size, hands, route running ability. He is the wide receiver 1 in this class, no doubt about it. I'm going to start putting together a combined combination of the two, and I have him pretty close to Brian Thomas Jr. coming right out. I don't think he's on the same level as Neighbors, but he wins at all 3 levels of the field. Elite red zone skills, full route tree with separation. And Snoog, when I look at him, it's Drake London and it's Mike Evans. Drake London on the low end, Mike Evans on the high end. So you're getting a top 15 dynasty wide receiver day 1. Last year, we said Neighbors and Marv were going to be top 12 day 1, and they are. Marv has been a little bit slower towards it. But I think Brian Thomas Jr. is that area where I could see if he goes to the Patriots, brother, this is going to be a top 12 dynasty wide receiver day 1.
Yep. He's one of those guys. I mean, if you look at him from just a prospect profile perspective, very clean profile. I mean, he's got that elite breakout age at 18, 19 years old, true freshman season, back-to-back 1,300-plus yard seasons. He's an early declare. He's 21 years old. He has the production. He has the yards per out run numbers. He's got the target share numbers. I'm gonna pull something up. I think it'll let me present and share my screen. I'm gonna show you this graphic using the Campus to Canton tool of two metrics that I really like to look at. It's kind of weighted dominator rating, which is just like overall production of the team, like success, and then of yards per team pass attempt for all these wideouts like Devontae Smith, Marvin Harrison Jr., all those elite prospects that we've seen. So I'm going to do this real quick and show you guys kind of how elite Tet McMillan is. So you should be able to see right now. Yeah. Look at how good he is. Like that's just the dominator rating and it's adjusted to. So look at that. He's top of the line against all these prospects in year 1, year 2, and year 3. And year 1 is honestly where I like to look for these type of prospects because like coming in 18, 19 years old, most players don't play. Even if you're a 5-star recruit, doesn't matter. He came in instantly elite. Like Xavier Worthy was a guy like that, right? Like came in instantly elite. It's incredible to see that year 3 though. Like everyone's good their junior year, typically, especially these elite prospects. He comes in and he's literally the best of the best in this category. And then some other thing that I want to look at here, receiving yards per team pass attempt. This is the go-to one that I really like to look at. So this is kind of just showing like Neighbors up there at the top, but like just seeing him in the mix with these guys, like he's 3rd right below Waddle Lamb. He's 4th right below Garrett, Chase, Marv. Like he's above guys like Judy, Lamb, Neighbors. And here, like he's still like above that trend line right here. And that trend line is the average of a wide receiver with the top 24 seasons. So it's good to be above that. But even like below that, you see like elite prospects like Garrett, London, Rome Odunze, Waddle. Like it matters for what team you're on. Definitely, like there's context that needed behind this, but he's right there with the best of the best here. So just two things I wanted to show, kind of talking about Tet, but back-to-back 1,300 plus yard seasons. This guy, you nailed it with that Mike Evans comp. I've heard and seen, and I feel a lot of AJ Green, T Higgins on his tape, maybe Drake London a little bit, but a lot of people are like, yeah, this guy's Mike Williams, or this guy's this type of player. Like the thing with these, like I saw this with Brian Thomas, I saw this with Marv, these big, fast, athletic wide receivers that can separate, run routes, and win at all 3 levels is the ones that you want. That's the Mike Evans, the Drake Londons, the T Higgins. Like he moves well. He's number 1 in this class for me in his own tier right now.
He's projected to run a 4.5 140. If he hits in the 4.4s, watch out. Like we are going to see just absolute, this is an outside X receiver that's going to put up crazy numbers. This is someone that honestly, you have seen Drake May has put up one of the most phenomenal rookie seasons with no wide receivers at all. When you look at actual big time throws, Tet McMillan would be absolutely perfect for that. I mean, he has just been unbelievable in college. Runs crisp routes, good stem work. He's someone that demonstrates just that savvy way to find the open spots in the zone. Someone that I think, he's not elite in speed like we're going to talk about with some of these other guys, but he does have capable speed, right? That's why we talk about Drake London and Mike Evans, not so much Brian Thomas Jr. or some of these other guys that have the ability to burn. But his red zone ability, his flexibility to make those one-handed catches, make those contested catches, this is someone that has big play potential. I mean, we saw
he's the best hands in the class.
Absolutely.
Like not close either. Yeah.
It's a straight up vacuum. And Snoog, what I try to do when I do these scenarios is he's the 102. I think there's a scenario where Junty goes to the wrong spot where I would consider taking him 101, but I'm not there. It really has to be, in that right spot. I'm trying to tear down if I am. But if I'm making a trade, I am trying right now to get up to 102. The other thing that I'm trying to do, if it's a playoff team right now, if it's a team afterwards that looks a little bit better, is I'm trying to take one of my wide receivers. I'm trying to take somebody in that top 2, that second tier that's starting to get a little bit older. If I'm trying to take maybe Nico Collins, AJ Brown, Marvin Harrison Jr., one of those guys, and get the 102 plus, because I think Tet McMillan, I'm that confident that he's going to break out, that if I could get AJ Brown for the 102 in a second, I would do it. If I could get AJ Brown straight up for the 102, I think I would take the 102 because I think there's so much there that he is going to pan out. I rarely say that this is a lock. We said it with Neighbors. We were there with Brian Thomas Jr. I'm pretty sure this is a lock. You know, a lot of people are going to say because he doesn't run 4.4 that he's not going to be able to separate. He does separate. He's a nuanced, you know, route runner. This isn't N'Keal Harry. Everybody brings that up. This isn't one of those guys that can't separate. This isn't Quentin Johnston. You know, like this is Quentin Johnston if he could separate and have hands.
And if he could,
you know, like this is not right. This is Quentin Johnston's low key. You know, going to put up.
I think
12 plus.
I think the best. I think the best comps for him that aren't like, all right, come on, like the AJ Green ones. Like, all right, AJ Green's like damn near Hall of Famer. I think T Higgins is a really good, strong, safe comp. And I think Drake London's a really good, strong, safe comp. I think a good, like, he doesn't play like George Pickens, but that could be like another one. I think like a good floor comp would kind of be like what Mike Williams was on the Chargers, but he doesn't play like Mike Williams. Like he's a lot more complete and more of a separator. Now, I would take BTJ over Tet right now. Yeah. 100%.
So Prospect was saying BTJ is now Brian Thomas Jr. worth the 102 plus. And as of right now, he is worth more than Tet McMillan. He is not worth more than the 101. But I think if you're a rebuilding team, I think you can get 101 plus. Right now, I do think we are going to probably see Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders go really early and move up to that 102 spot, because this is what happens every year, Snoog, right? We had Jamar Chase. We had, you know, like Malik Neighbors, Marvin Harrison Jr. We've always had these wide receivers. We're like, dude, they're going to be the 101. And then quarterbacks start to jump in there, and everybody has that need for quarterback. They jump in there. So don't be afraid to trade for 103 either, because that's going to be a lot of times where he goes 103, 104 because people are hungry for quarterbacks. So I think you can comfortably slate him in behind Brian Thomas Jr. in the comparative two classes. You know, it's Malik. It's Brian. I mean, you can't put Brian Thomas Jr. behind Marvin Harrison Jr. Like you can't
at this point.
Marv has to be 3. I think Tet is right there.
I think the right move is turning BTJ into Marv plus if you're going to do something like that. But I think I'm taking any of those 3 over Tet, Marv, BTJ, and Neighbors over Tet comfortably. But Tet's like right there. Like Tet's like right there with them. Like I think Tet's probably like a little bit better than that Rome Odunze prospect type. But
you might think I'm crazy, but I'm taking Tet over Marv. This first season was just,
I don't know though. Kyler's horrible. Kyler's not good. Kyler's not good.
We hit like crazy, but that was our biggest miss for sure.
Yeah,
but I mean, Tet McMillan goes with Drake May, and I think you're going to see a much more productive wide receiver than what we've seen with Marv. And hopefully Kyler can put it together here in year 2 with them. Tier 2, and like we said with the running backs, for us, Ashton Junty is in a tier by himself. For me, I also think Tet McMillan's in a tier by himself. He's an elite dynasty wide receiver 1, day 1, just like Junty. Now, tier 2, I call this the true difference-making wide receiver tier. For me, it's Travis Hunter and Luther Burden. I think you can – I think the difference between tier 1 and tier 2 is not as big – or is bigger than the difference between tier 2 and tier 3. I think tier 2 and tier 3, you're really going to start to kind of see some separation. But for me, if we know Travis Hunter is wide receiver only, he possesses elite mechanics as a wide receiver at the breaks, rare reactive athleticism with just fluid lower body that you just can't teach with quick cuts, natural hands, plus ball skills and exceptional tracking. And it's like, if he is just a wide receiver, he is clearly the wide receiver 2 in this class. If he plays both, I start to think of how are we going to do it? Because in college, it's going to be different than we would do in the pros. If he plays both, you can argue if you play IDP, he's the 101 because he's going to play both ways. And I had a question about that today, and I'm like, damn, like we've never thought about that, right? Like Deion Sanders was not in play when we were talking IDP back in the day. So him and Burden, I like him better than Burden as a wide receiver. I just worry that if he's playing both ways, we might not see his true potential.
I'm gonna just kind of touch on why Travis Hunter, how I feel about him as a wideout, and kind of my kind of analysis on him, because I had time to watch a lot of Travis Hunter after he won the Heisman. I was like, all right, obviously I watched a lot of Colorado football the past 2 years. I knew he's him. I knew he's gifted. I knew he's an elite athlete. I just wanted to see the plays that sometimes you miss, right? Like the play doesn't go his way, or it's like maybe it's an overthrow, like some things you miss. I saw Jerry Jeudy, Garrett Wilson, a little bit of CeeDee Lamb in the way Travis Hunter plays wide receiver, but mainly Garrett Wilson with how he tracks the ball and how athletically gifted he is. Like I remember, I know you obviously remember this, but Garrett Wilson's true freshman season at Ohio State, when he literally like leaped over that Clemson defender to catch the football, like that's a Travis Hunter play. Like Travis Hunter has that type of athleticism, the gift, like the ability to track the football, to catch the football. Like he's second to none in that class in those three categories. I see what John says here. I'm not going to sit here and act like I know what he's going to play at the NFL. I don't know. He could play a corner. He could play wide out. He's going to be good at either if he does.
We've never seen that. He is the best corner in the class.
I'm not going to be a know-it-all and say,
wide receiver.
Yeah, I'm not going to be a know-it-all and sit here and act like I'm a GM and tell you, oh, he's going to play corner. Don't draft him.
Oh, no, you're right.
Drafts. If he plays both ways and you're not an IDP, I think he takes a little bit of a bump for me down, because I don't think he's going to be a guy that is going to be like a team's wide receiver one if he's also their cornerback one. I think it'll be more kind of like going in on special plays and getting like screen passes and stuff. Mm-hmm. But to me, Travis Hunter, if he plays wide out, drafted as a wide out, and maybe plays a little bit of defense or something, plays a little bit of nickel corner or something, then he's the second wide receiver in this class for me, like hands down. If not, he's fighting for that one, because you just watch the tape. Like, I mean, the kid won the Biletnikoff Award and the Heisman, so he's best wide receiver in the country, according to them. I mean, I think Tet was, but according to them, and he won the Heisman. So he's special. He can do it all. He's a very, very high-end player and talent. In the right hands and with the right receiving group and receiver coach and development process in the NFL, like he could be, like he is special. Like his routes are good. His separation is just second to none. He can catch everything. He can jump and catch the ball. He can high point. He's literally like a less polished Garrett Wilson coming out, because Garrett Wilson was just such a good route runner, and like he could run every route. I think Travis Hunter lacks a little bit of that overall, but I think like the separation off the line, the quickness, like he's him. Like
if we get him in the right system, he's everything we wanted Xavier Worthy to actually be, right? Like if you put him in KC with what he has, with his skill set, what his speed is, all those kind of things, I mean, he would absolutely dominate. It's going to be a way.
Speaking of Xavier Worthy,
hold up, Matt.
Xavier Worthy would be good.
No, Xavier Worthy's bad.
Mahomes stinks.
Matt Glure has a question here via Super Chat. He says, if I have the 102 and a one quarterback start 7, so that is a very shallow format. Trade up to the 101 to get Junty. Team is Jayden Daniels, Bijan, no RB2, Neighbors, Rice, Marv, Downs, Dell, and Ferguson. Now, obviously, you're going to have to upgrade the tight end position here. I am building this team here around, it really depends on the ability to buy. Can you buy a Joe Mixon, an Alvin Kamara, a James Conner for a second and fill him in that RB2 spot? Because for me, I'm loving the idea of having Tet and Neighbors and Rice and maybe even Downs. I might consider, depending on what the 101 looks like. And Matt, we always like to give you advice, and we dig deeper than anybody else does when we talk about these. So make sure you DM us if there's a little bit more insight. But Snoog, this is the type of trade where I would really try to say, you know what, Marv in the 102 for the 101, and what wide receiver? Maybe he has a wide receiver who's really close to that, or even Dell, who had a rough year. I would deal Dell in the 102 for the 101 easily. I would deal a 26 first and then get something else back. So maybe, Matt, if you're trying to push in and he's not, because this team looks like a baller. Like you look like you're ready to go. The fact that you have the 101 or 102, maybe he's still rebuilding. So you say, hey, brother, I'm going to give you the 102 and my 26 first. Give me the 101 and a veteran type. Get a Brian Robinson. Get someone else that just gives you a little bit of depth, or maybe even get an Evan Ingram or a tight end, because Ferguson's just not the way right now. But Snoog, anything you want to add to that? Because I think this is a smart idea. Like you want to do that, reduce volatility, but the other way, you want to push in for that all-in running back.
Matt, what you can do is take this 102 and turn it into Jahmyr Gibbs, or turn it into Bijan Robinson and add a little bit, instead of going and adding a lot for Junty, because Junty's going to have so much hype, especially if he's taken in the top 10, goes to like Dallas Cowboys. There's going to be a lot of hype around that, and there's going to be a lot of hype around Tet. You could capitalize on that hype. You don't have, like, if the 101 guy is like, no, give me a first on top, then go to the Gibbs owner, go to the Bijan owner and say, all right, 102 plus what gives me one of those guys. It could be less than what the Junty owner wants. So always weigh your options. Don't be forced if you have draft capital to stay in the draft. You can also get out of the draft and still contend. So that's one thing that I always try to do.
You know, it's wild, Snoog, and this is where we talk about Dynasty being so cyclical, but people start downgrading the value of Jahmyr Gibbs, Devon Achane, Drake London after the year, because even though they're young and they should be untouchable, people are like, oh, look at these fresh new toys. You know, this guy's the new guy, and dad says that Tet's going to be like Mike Evans. Well, I better trade for that. I mean, yes, that's what we're comparing him to, but that doesn't mean that he's going to pan out. When you have an opportunity to get a Gibbs, I'm with you, man. Like you go in for that. You try to make that move, or you trade the 102 for, you know, Brian Thomas Jr. You trade the 102 for an ascending piece plus, you know. So I love that question. Make sure you guys, you know, all of you guys can do this in the Discord. That's patreon.com/smash accept, or on our Twitter DMs. We'll answer the initial, but we're not going to keep our DMs open very long.
My QB2 in the 2025 class just decided to go back to school, so I'm going to break this news live on the pod. Drew Aller is going back to Penn State for his 4th year.
Yeah.
So
it seems like
2026 picks a little bit better.
Aller and Stewart, I thought, were the two guys that you know, that I was ranking, but I'm like, I feel like they go back. So I have the next guy that's interesting. Kind of a phenomenal season last year. This year, not so much. Still just 21 years old. Runs a 4.41 40. Someone that's 5'11", 208. Yak machine. You know, like he is someone that has Debo, or now we don't want to say Debo because that sounds bad. Rashee Rice type yak ability is Luther Burden. So Luther Burden was neck and neck with Tet McMillan when we were talking last year. Now he's dipped down. I think I have him at 2. If, like I said, if Hunter plays both ways.
Same.
So like that's where they're in that same tier. Still a difference-making player. Someone that has just unbelievable skill set when it comes to the open field. A twitchy athlete with an explosive first step. Someone that if you get him the ball, I think it's Jayden Reed on steroids. Like I think he's better than Jayden Reed. But you remember how early in the year Green Bay was getting Jayden Reed involved in jet sweeps. They were getting him bubble screens. They were getting him involved in all areas of the field. He's bigger than Jayden Reed. He's more physical. And I think he is going to be someone that you're going to get in your rookie drafts a lot of times at 107, 108. But I think he has top 20 dynasty wide receiver potential to maybe even jump into the top 15.
Yeah, he's fun. I mean, he's another one. True freshman breakout, over 750 total yards, 8 touchdowns, great in the SEC. I mean, he had 60-plus receptions, and then that sophomore year was special. I mean, he went for 1,200-plus, 86 receptions, and 8 touchdowns. Like, I actually put out a tweet, and I was like, I feel like Luther Burden kind of, just because of the year he just had, it was honestly really, really bad this past year. I mean, it wasn't ideal, right? Like, I mean, he was below 700 yards. Like, you would love to see more of that from him, especially like a player with that type of pedigree. But if you watch the film, and I saw a lot of guys when I was doing a lot of research on Luther Burden, there was so many times he was overthrown on touchdowns, or he's pretty sure he had like 3 or 4 touchdowns called back from like stupid penalties. Like one of them was like an illegal shift that wasn't an illegal shift or something. It was like an 85-yard touchdown he had. So he had a lot of plays that's like, yep, that's a Luther Burden. His ability to track the comp is DJ Moore. His ability to track the football is great. He's one of those good athletes, yak machine. But I also gave out I threw out some other comps out there just for like some ceiling and fuller comps. I see a little bit of Curtis Samuel. I see Debo. I see Jayden Reed. I see DJ Moore. I see a lot of these guys. So I see a little bit of Rashee Rice, I guess, a little bit. So those are kind of like some comps you could toss up to him. Like, I don't think he's going to be this A.J. Brown, Garrett Wilson, CeeDee Lamb. I think he'll be like a DJ Moore, maybe like in that Chris Olave-ish type, like top 20 wide receiver range at best. But good prospect. Analytics are good. Like, everything about him looks good. So I'm impressed with Luther Burden. I want to watch more film on him and more takes. But yeah, what Prospect just said, it's between him and Emeka for that 3 spot or that 2 spot if Travis Hunter plays DB for me. So those two are in their tier together. And I think it's going to come down to just who gets the better landing spot, I think, for those two.
Yeah. And I think you're like, I see him as Reed, or maybe if you're old school like me, Randall Cobb plus. You know, I think he's going to be a good wide receiver. And this is the difference between 2024 and 2025, and why we told you to buy the running backs in 2025 and load up on wide receivers in 2024, because I don't have, right now, Ladd's the wide receiver 4 in the class, and outside, I mean, he's above it. Tet's the only one that's even close with Ladd McConkey in value right now. And I think that's kind of where you're at. So you want to invest in the running backs in this class, and that's why you look at most of our mocks, and we're going to be doing one soon. It's going to be heavily driven with running backs in the middle. I think you're going to have Junty at the top. You're going to see Tet. You're going to see 2 quarterbacks. You're going to see 4 more running backs before we even consider taking Burden. Maybe Hunter's up in that area, but that's a lot to digest. Moving into the next tier, and you and I, we have it slightly different here. I think you have Egbuka. It's in this tier as well. I still have him as my next. I have him a tier below, but I have him in that same also as my wide receiver 5. So talk to me why because I say tier 3 is a high upside wide receiver 2. Like, I think it's a player in tier 3 where they could, in a good offense, they could really thrive. I see him as a really high-end wide receiver 2. I think Burden and Hunter in the right offense could be a 1A. But do you see Egbuka as someone that's in that 1A, or do you see him as a high-end 2?
He's a high-end 2. My comps for him, I've watched him a lot in college. I mean, his sophomore season was very special with Marv when they actually had a good quarterback in CJ Stroud. He put up 1,100 yards, 10 touchdowns, 75-plus receptions. He has a nose for the end zone. I mean, even this year, he had 9 touchdowns, like 60-plus receptions. He's a very, very high, safe floor guy. I think he might have the highest floor in this class at the position. Terry McLaurin, Tyler Lockett, similar type of play styles to me. Those are kind of those ceiling-ish comps. Yeah. He's a guy that's you could bake on a top 30 dynasty wide receiver pretty easily, I think. So I think he'll be a first-round pick or an early second-round pick, but he has amazing hands, good route runner, good in space. Tracking the ball is great, like one of those type of players.
I think he's a poor man's Jackson Smith-Njigba. I'm not trying to I think that's where we're at. But I mean, I think you look at him, short area quickness, in and out of breaks, someone who's tough to tackle and gets a lot of yak, savvy technician. You look at him, he's got a really great skill set. He's nuanced to the position. He's someone that's going to come in very ready. And Ohio State's always done that. We said that with Chris Olave was always the most pro-ready guy in that class. Not the highest upside, because you and I have been saying it for years, and finally you get to see it's Garrett Wilson. Again, this is going to be someone with not the highest upside, but very pro-ready right off the bat. And that's why I love him. That's why we loved Chris Olave in the right situation as a wide receiver too. It'd be beautiful, in a high-volume offense. Egbuka is going to be in that same way. I have my wide receiver 5. Yours right now, you have it as Tez Johnson. I'm starting to, and I know we're early in the process, but I know you have him as your 8. I'm starting to love Isiah Bond, like someone that looks like 4.28 projected 40, someone with track speed, stacks the corners, and has the ability to just blow the top off the defense. Versatility. He lined up in the slot. He lined up on the outside. You saw him getting used in jet sweeps because of his yak ability. I mean, we kind of missed with the 2 Texas wide receivers last year. Is Bond the guy this year? Is he going to be someone? I think if he gets in the right offense again, this is someone that I think could really boom.
Let me throw you out 2 comps for him, and let me know if that's what you saw. Wan'Dale Robinson, Josh Downs. I think Bond
I like the Downs.
He's got the pedigree, right? He's got the Bama, the Texas pedigree. He was always solid at Bama. He came to Texas, started off hot, looked great. I mean, he's a good route runner, good separator, good player. I see him as like a high-end role player plus. Like I see him as like a number 2 or like a number 3 on a good offense. I don't see what I thought he was at the beginning of the year. I thought he had the chance to be like my 4 or 5 in this class. I think Tez Johnson, I think Evan Stewart, I think Tre Harris just have way more high-end traits, way higher ceiling. So I'm going to put those guys over him, and the production's better. But he's one of those guys that looks really solid on film to me. Again, I have to go through like a lot of these. My pre-draft rankings, my 1.0 just went out this morning. A lot of it is what I've seen during the college season, and kind of all the production profiles that I looked through and kind of dive through some of like the yards per run numbers, the yak numbers, all that good stuff. I'm yet to really like fully deep dive through. Like I'm going to probably put out like 5.0, 6.0, like up until like the NFL draft, just because like that's how I feel. Like you always watch, you always learn, you always get better, you sharpen your rankings, you adjust. You have up until the start of the NFL season to get it right, right? Like
I
no
think
one gets it right away.
5 through 10 this year are very, very fluid. It's going to be a very fluid process. I think 1 through 4 are going to be pretty set in stone, but I think 5 through 10, and I like your comp. I saw him as a Jalen Waddle light. I did see a lot of things that I liked from him. And I'm excited for this class because when you have a lot of volatility between 5 and 10, it's only going to be where you and I are able to take teams up over the top. Yeah. We're going to be able to tell you who that guy is. We're going to be able to just assess. And this is someone that I think just has a lot of creativity, a lot of ability after the catch, decent route running. You have Tez Johnson, so I want to hear a little bit because I have not dug as deep onto him. I have him in my top 10, but I do not have him this high. So, and the way I broke down my tiers is now we're looking at, and this is very similar, right? Like in years past, last year, tier 1 was elite top 5, and tier 2 was like going to be top 12, and tier 3 was wide receiver 2. For me, I have tier 3 as high upside wide receiver. Tier 4 is complementary wide receiver 2. Tier 5 is system dependent wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. And like if you listen to how that's said, draft capital is everything, right? So if Tez Johnson goes and pick inside that top 40 picks and he goes to a team that is wide receiver needy, he's going to boom. And if you see Isiah Bond go outside the top 40, because that's a window that you and I like to look at, is inside. It doesn't have to be round 1. It has to be inside that top 40 to 45. If he goes outside of that and he goes to a team that's already loaded with wide receivers, they're going to dip down a lot. You know what I mean? So a lot of room. Talk to me about Tez.
Yeah, he's the guy just at Oregon alone, 160 plus receptions, over 2,000 receiving yards, 20 plus touchdowns, playing alongside guys like Troy Franklin, Evan Stewart, like NFL talent guys. The thing with him to me is the comps. Another one, Josh Downs, Tank Dell, the comps I see. I think those are good ceiling outcomes too. I don't think he's going to be like this Garrett Wilson, but I think he'll be like a Tank Dell. He'll be a good value. He'll probably be like an early second, mid-second round rookie pick. I love it. Separation's elite, 7.5 yards after catch per reception this year. He was top 4 in total yak yards. He's a guy that's a reception hog. He plays a lot of slot, which is really good. Another comp, Ladd McConkey, could be a good comp for him.
Okay.
But
I like
the yards per route run numbers are great, especially at Oregon. But he had like almost a 90 PFF receiving grade this year. Just everything about his production profile was good. The film looks great. Very natural separator. Probably one of the quickest releases off the line in the class. Right there with his fellow teammate, Evan Stewart, Travis Hunter. He's just the kind of player I like. I like those twitchy, flashy, like Garrett Wilson, Devontae Smith. Like those type of receivers are always fun to me. They're always undervalued. So those are the type of guys I like. And I like to see like, okay, he's producing. He's good. He's good on this team. Who are the players around him? And he had other NFL talent around him. So just good to see that he was performing. 1,200 plus yards alongside Troy Franklin, who's a Debbie Darling to a lot of people. And a lot of people thought he was going to be a first-round pick. Didn't work out that way. There's a lot more to it than just how good you are at football. What's your characteristics like? What's your off-field issues like? Tez Johnson, every single day, was out there putting out numbers against him. Evan Stewart, they get the number 1 wide receiver in the transfer portal. Guy I love in this class. Every day, outproducing him day by day. So it's just, you got to give the man his flowers. The film looks great. He's my wide receiver 5 in this class. And right now, things are subject to change. But in the tier with Tre Harris and Evan Stewart, who we'll talk about next.
Yeah, they're exactly. So the next tier, and I have him as tier 4, and we're going to talk about these kind of guys. I have Tre Harris, someone who's red zone threat, next level ability at 50-50 balls. You already mentioned Evan Stewart. I have Evan Stewart in tier 5 because I don't think he's coming out. But if he does, he had a better 2023 than he did 2024, which is why sometimes I think he might go back in the same area. I know they're not as much household names, but I love Xavier Restrepo, like someone that just in the slot. I liked him a lot more like Ladd McConkey. I'm going to mess the name up. I know I am. Is it Elik Ayomanor?
Yeah.
All right.
I like him. Elik Ayomanor.
Elik. Okay.
Stanford kid. Yeah.
No, but he's someone that, deep threat stretches the field. I like Jayden Higgins a lot in this area. Evan Stewart, Jalen Royal. You have also on there White in that area. Like this is that area where it's just going to be a lot to unpack throughout the next couple of months. But let's talk real quick. I mean, Tre Harris, you and I both agree that he's right up there as number 6. We didn't quite agree on our number 5, but we agree on number 6. Red zone threat, just with next level ability with those 50-50 balls. Tre Harris is someone that jumps off the tape when you watch just the highlights. So you don't dig in, but you watch the highlights. He's got a lot to like.
You want to talk about who the Belenikov would have been? This guy was averaging 5+ yards per out run before injury. He had 1,000 yards in like 6.5 games, 7 touchdowns. Last year, 900+ yards, 8 touchdowns. Like production profile looks good. He's a guy that gets in the end zone a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I fear his play style and skill set is a dying breed in the NFL, and that's my one knock on him. These contested catch, big athletic guys that are he gives me like, I never liked Rashad Bateman a lot coming out, and he doesn't play like him, but like that 6'1" to 6'2" range, like this is what people thought Brian Thomas Jr. was, but I just saw Brian Thomas Jr. as someone completely different. Like I saw everything he did on film. I watched every game, everything I could find on him, and I was like, this guy moves like a gazelle, and he's like 6'3". With Tre Harris and with some of these other guys, Treylon Burks, like good hands, catch everything, touchdown scores, like good yak players, but there's just something about them that you're just like, I can see them being great. I could also see them being nothing. And that's the feeling I'm getting with Tre Harris as of today, as of December 16th, 2024. But the prospect profile, and the production, man, is screaming. So he's someone that's going to be polarizing for me, but I'm excited to actually watch. I haven't really gotten a chance to watch like his film like that, but I saw a lot of Ole Miss games this year. Jackson Dart's a dog, so that could also be a reason why Tre Harris was playing so good. But it's just one of those things. Like I said, I feel and I'm nervous he's that dying breed skill set in the NFL right now, like turning into a lot of those slot elite route runner quick guys. But right situation, right hands. Like if he goes to the Chargers, a good comp, Xavier Legette plus is like a good comp for him right now, like a better Xavier Legette.
I think Tre Harris is one. I see a lot of people were comping him to Michael Thomas. I see more of like a Romeo Doubs type, where he's just someone that doesn't have elite athleticism. He doesn't have elite yak ability. He's someone that can catch the ball. He does the contested catches, but in the NFL, it's got to be the right system. Like we over invested in Keon Coleman in 2024 because of those type contested catches. Now, is he going to still pan out? Maybe. Josh Allen he's made Khalil Shakir a household name. I think he could actually keep ascending there, but Tre Harris is an interesting one. Next one on there, Elik Ayomanor. Did I say it right that better that time? I'm going to get this. My first year podcasting, it was very hard for me to say his name too. So physicality, speed, strength, hands, deep threat to stretch the field. What do you see? What do you like from him? How high up do you have him as your 6, 7, 8, 9, 10? I have him as my 7. Talk to me a little bit about him.
He's one of those guys I need to watch a little bit more on too. But I mean, he was making plays. He has pretty good production. I'm just at that point. I know it's going to be during that range where it's like, all right, is it him or is it a 5-star recruit, stud Debbie Darling, like Evan Stewart, who just has all those high-end traits that I look for? Evan Stewart's one of the best route runners, one of the best release, one of the best separators in this class. I could see him being one of those guys that people are like forgetting about, and then he just ends up getting early day two draft capital, and then he all of a sudden gets a ton of value. Because like he's one of those guys to me, like I generally watch him. I stayed up till 2 a.m. watching him the other night, laughing at my phone at the stuff he does to people, like his routes. And like there's a play against when he was on Texas A&M as a true freshman. He just snapped the DB right off the line of scrimmage. The ball was underthrown and he had to come back and he mossed the same DB that he broke his ankles off the line of scrimmage. Like he has those high-end traits I love. And I think if it was just a talent perspective, he'd be anywhere up until like the wide receiver 3 in this class for me. If it was like I could decide who I draft based on talent and what I see on film, but like the production, I don't know if he's like, if there's issues off the field. I know he just came to an Oregon team with Tez Johnson, who was already there, already producing that system. Like it's hard to come into a team and just steal what was already working from a player that you play similar to. But I think like if he was to go to Texas, like I wanted him to, instead of Isiah Bond, I think he would have had a really good year. So I just think context is needed with his profile, but he reminds me of a lot of like how Jayden Reed at Michigan State was, and like how some of these guys are that are just great separators. They can catch the ball, they can play big for their size. And I mean, he was a very high-end recruit. He had that true freshman breakout at A&M. So love Evan Stewart. He's probably my favorite wide receiver in this class.
The other reason why I'm so excited about running backs in this class, Snoog, is it's the easiest position to predict. You can
you don't have
tape.
to reach on all these wideouts. You can just take the running back.
You watch the tape on running backs and you know, right? And they're outside of Hunter, Burden, McMillan, and Egbuka, you don't know. Like they could hit, and we're gonna give a lot of insight into this. We're bringing this out real early. I mean, heck, we're talking about it before Christmas. We're going to continue to do this, but we wanted you to get an idea of it. You know, Snoog, I don't think any of these guys, other than Egbuka, might be a late first in your rookie draft by the time it's all said and done. You know, like someone's going to get a dream landing spot, and we're going to move him up there. But, I mean, Tet's probably going to be the 2, with Hunter and Burden being somewhere between 5 and 8. And I don't think we see another wide receiver in the first round. The tricky part is going to be, where do these guys fall into the second round? Because we've always talked about, you know, every single one of the round ones this year except Xavier Worthy hit. Round 2 was tough, right? We had Adonai Mitchell, who we loved during the process, but we didn't like him going to the Colts. And we had Xavier Legette, who got really high draft capital, but we didn't love during the process. Then we had, who else was in that area? I mean, we had, help me out here real quick. We had
Javon Baker.
We had Baker who just
decided to be a thug.
His draft capital fell off. Franklin's draft capital really fell off. We had
we didn't like Jalen Polk at all. We didn't like Jalen Polk at all.
Jalen Polk didn't pan out.
We loved Ladd. We wanted Ladd to be a Pat with Drake May.
Yeah.
We loved Nye Mitchell, who got terrible situation with Anthony Richardson, who can't even complete 5 passes.
If you look at mocks right now, I mean, it's even the second round is heavily driven by running backs. You know, like I can see a real scenario when you get to that second round, and we're going to start talking to more. We're going to start diving into what those look like. So I'm buying seconds right now because they're still cheap. And I think you're going to get some running backs that have crazy upside. But just looking at it right now, I mean, I think Egbuka is an early second, Bond's an early second. And then you start to really, these other guys are going to be mid to late seconds. Unless Evan Stewart gets the right, you know, he has, if you talked about it last year, he would have been in that tier 1, maybe tier 2.
Yep.
This year was just kind of fell off a little bit. So, I mean, I think we're going to really look at that. Going to dig deeper into Jalen Royal, into Restrepo. We're going to dig deeper into a lot of these guys. Ricky White, you know, like there's some guys that you and I need to dig deeper into. Jayden Higgins, you know, that they all have some traits that win, but they also have some warts that we're going to have to really get into throughout the process. You guys are going to love it. We bring in a lot of top tier analysts, you know, every single year we bring in some of the best, you know, Matt Hicks comes in, we get, you know, some guys that are absolutely massive in the industry. We're going to continue to do that, but the best way throughout the process to win your rookie draft in 2025 is going to be in that Smash Accept Patreon. So make sure you guys join today, $5 a month. And then once you get close to the draft, tier up and get it to a draft assistance where Snoog and I will literally help you the whole way. So thanks again for tuning in, guys, and enjoy the process. How did I forget Matt Waldman's name?